It's interesting, isn't it? The enduring fascination, even decades later, with a figure like Ted Bundy. It's something I've been thinking about a lot, especially after reviewing all the material for today.
Yeah, it's a question that continues to plague criminologists, psychologists, really anyone who's ever delved into his case. What is it about Bundy that still captures our collective imagination?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not the only serial killer in history, but there's something about him.
Right. He seems to hold a unique place in our cultural consciousness, almost like a boogeyman.
Totally. So for this deep dive, we're really going to try to unpack that. We're going to examine the details of his crimes, his methods, and try to understand what motivated him, at least as best we can.
Exactly. And hopefully by doing so, we can shed some light on not just Bundy himself, but on the very nature of evil and why it continues to fascinate and horrify us.
So let's start by setting the scene. It's the 1970s, a time of immense social and cultural change, sort of this backdrop of unrest, which, in a way, becomes the hunting ground for Ted Bundy.
And that's an important point to consider. This era of change might have inadvertently played a role in Bundy's ability to operate undetected for so long.
So talk to me about his MO, his method. What made Bundy so, for lack of a better term, effective?
Well, unlike many serial killers who might fit a more stereotypical profile, the loner, the outcast Bundy was anything but.
Right, he was described as charismatic, charming even.
Exactly. And he weaponized that charm, using it to disarm potential victims. He often portrayed himself as vulnerable, even using crutches or a fake arm sling to appear less threatening.
It's chilling because he was preying on people's inherent goodness, their willingness to help someone in need.
Absolutely. And his preferred victims often shared physical characteristics, long, dark hair, parted down the middle. Many bore a striking resemblance to a former girlfriend of his, someone who had rejected him.
So there's this element of obsession, almost like he was trying to recreate a past trauma or seek revenge for this perceived rejection.
It's certainly a theory that's been explored, and it adds another layer of complexity to an already complex case.
And it was more than just the act of killing with Bundy. His crimes were often incredibly brutal.
Right. The level of violence he inflicted, coupled with the disturbing element of necrophilia, suggests a deep-seated need for power and control, even after death.
And that's what makes his case so deeply unsettling. So let's talk about some of the specifics, starting with the Lake Sammamish abductions.
Okay, so it's a beautiful summer day in 1974. Lake Sammamish State Park is packed with people enjoying the sunshine. Bundy, using the name Ted, approaches several young women asking for help with his sailboat.
And this is all in broad daylight, with witnesses around. It's audacious, to say the least.
It is. 4 women go missing that day, 2 of whom were last seen with Bundy. Their disappearances send shockwaves through the community and beyond.
It's interesting how even in these early crimes, we see elements of Bundy's MO playing out the charming persona, the calculated approach, the targeting of specific victims.
Absolutely. And it's important to note that witness accounts from that day at Lake Sammamish would later prove crucial in identifying Bundy as a suspect.
But by then, he'd already slipped away, seemingly vanished into thin air.
Right. It's like he disappeared, only to reappear in other states, leaving this trail of terror across the Pacific Northwest.
Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado. It's like a gruesome road trip, each stop marked by another tragedy.
And what's striking is that while his locations changed, his MO remained remarkably consistent. He continued to target young women, often in public places, using ruses to gain their trust.
And he was constantly evolving, adapting to avoid detection. He even managed to escape police custody twice.
Yeah, the courthouse escape especially is almost unbelievable. He jumped out of a second-story window in the courthouse library while supposedly researching legal books. It's like something out of a movie.
It just adds to the mystique surrounding him. This image of Bundy as a master manipulator, always one step ahead of the law.
And let's not forget, those escapes had devastating consequences. After his second escape, Bundy made his way to Florida, where he committed some of his most heinous crimes.
Right, the Chi Omega sorority house murders. That's when Bundy's name became synonymous with pure evil. He savagely attacked 4 young women, killing 2 of them in the middle of the night.
Those murders, sadly, were the ones that truly cemented his infamy, making him a household name across the country.
And then, just a few weeks later, he abducted and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. That's the one that always gets to me. It's a whole other level of depravity.
It's a grim reminder of the indiscriminate nature of his crimes, the utter lack of remorse or empathy.
And then finally, after years of evading justice, Bundy is apprehended in Florida in 1978.
And his trial, which began the following year, becomes a media sensation. It's one of the first televised trials of its kind, broadcast nationally.
The nation was captivated, horrified, but also strangely drawn to this figure who seemed both ordinary and monstrous.
And Bundy, always the showman, seemed to revel in the attention, often acting as his own attorney, cross-examining witnesses and delivering rambling speeches.
He even proposed to his girlfriend, Carol Ann Boone, in the middle of the courtroom. She later gave birth to his child, which is mind-boggling to me.
Right, and then there were the letters, the fan mail, mostly from women who were enamored with him despite the heinous nature of his crimes.
It's unfathomable to most, but it speaks to the power of his charisma, his ability to manipulate and control even from behind bars.
It's a chilling reminder that evil can wear many masks, can be cloaked in charm and a disarming smile.
And despite overwhelming evidence against him, Bundy maintained his innocence for years, even after he was sentenced to death. It wasn't until much later that he finally began to confess to his crimes.
Right, and even then there's debate over whether those confessions were genuine acts of remorse or simply another way for him to control the narrative, to insert himself into the story one last time.
Because ultimately, we can never truly know what went on in Ted Bundy's mind. We can speculate, analyze, and dissect, but the true motives behind his evil may forever remain a mystery.
And that's perhaps the most unsettling aspect of all. His case serves as a stark reminder that monsters don't always lurk in the shadows, that they can walk among us, disguised as ordinary people leading seemingly normal lives.
Which leaves us with a chilling question. If someone like Bundy could exist, could blend in so seamlessly, how can we ever truly protect ourselves from the darkness that might reside within those around us?
That's a question we all have to grapple with, and perhaps there's no easy answer. But by continuing to study cases like Bundy's, by trying to understand the motivations behind these horrific acts, maybe we can start to recognize the warning signs and prevent future tragedies from occurring.
Well said. And that's something for all of us to think about. It's a heavy topic, but an important one. And I hope this deep dive has given you some new insights into the mind of one of America's most notorious killers and the lasting impact of his crimes.